Football Podcast, Neil and I take a look at part 3 of the Dynasty series and the breakup between Tom Brady and Bill Belichick.
All right, welcome in, everybody. We are at the conclusion of our Patriots Dynasty watch. We watched episodes 8, 9, and 10. And then after this, guys, we're going to start getting into some preview talk. Always gets me excited. We're kind of getting closer.
I have read so much about the Miami Dolphins and Buffalo Bills this week that I'm kind of sick of it already, but I'm excited to really dive in.
A lot of information to spew.
Yes.
But let's get to our talk about the Patriots. We left off episode 7 was the whole Deflategate thing. And you know, we won't go back into that, but me and Steven have alluded to already a couple times now that there's just been some issues chronologically with this series. I think overall, I think at the end we can talk overall what our feelings were, but it's been pretty good so far. But we've already mentioned how the show keeps like jumping back and forth in time a lot, and it sometimes can be hard to follow until you get used to it. They start off episode 8 with the 2014 draft, which is obviously pre-Deflategate and pre-Deflategate hearings and all that, mumbo jumbo that came from that. And obviously that 2014 draft was an interesting draft for the Patriots because they took Jimmy Garoppolo in round 2. And Jimmy Garoppolo was, I'm not really sure what his weaknesses were coming out of school. I mean, I know he played at Eastern Illinois, but
that was the big selling point is he wasn't a super mobile guy. He wasn't, not super athletic, but he was really a prolific passer at an FCS school. And for people that don't know FCS football, like Eastern Illinois plays, I think they're in the Missouri Valley.
I think so.
So the Missouri Valley Conference is like I guess it's the Missouri Valley Football Conference. That's like one of the best leagues at that level. So when like that's where Carson Wentz played. So he played at the highest level of FCS football, but that was still like kind of the selling point against him is that, yeah, that's great. Oh, excuse me. They're they're actually not in the Missouri Valley. They're in the Ohio Valley.
So that's, I feel like.
Yeah, that's like Tennessee State, Southeastern Missouri State.
But for a D1AA school, they do have a proud tradition of Tony Romo,
Sean Payton.
Yeah. It's a pretty good lineage for a D1AA school.
Yeah. But we're not, but not to dive too much into that. But like when Garoppolo was coming out, it was also a pretty weak quarterback class, to be completely honest. Like you had Derek Carr, and then that was the Bortles, Manziel, Teddy Bridgewater first round.
Yes, that's right.
So Bridgewater, like he was kind of, he was fine, but he wasn't spectacular. Wasn't a great athlete by any means. Derek Carr played at Fresno State, so that's a small step up from Eastern Illinois, but not that big. And I still, watching a lot of Derek Carr, I still remember and you remember we talked about this. I was like, the best player on Fresno State isn't Derek
wide
Carr.
receiver.
His wide receiver's a baller. And we were like, who is
that guy?
I'm like, oh, it's Devontae Adams. Like Devontae Adams, if you can find Fresno State tape from 2013, like that dude was killing defensive backs in the Mountain West. But like in terms of quarterback classes, it was pretty weak. The thing I'm going to complain about a little bit is they go like, oh, they use such a high pick on quarterback. First of all, the Patriots, like they always do, are picking at the end of a round if they own that. If they own the
pick.
The
62nd pick, wasn't it?
He was picked at the end of the second round. I think we talked about this last week. Like, if you look at the guys that were taken after him, like they didn't really miss out on like all the prolific names like Allen Robinson, Devontae Adams. It was really a great receiver draft. But like even the Kyle
Those
Van
guys
Noy,
didn't fit what the Patriots did.
yeah, like Kyle Van Noy would have made a lot of sense for the Patriots. He ended up being a great player for them, but Detroit actually took him before this pick. So in terms of like value, I mean, I don't necessarily blame the Patriots. And like if he took that as they're drafting my replacement, it's like I think they were taking your backup more than anything. And they probably understood having an aging quarterback. What if he misses a few games? They don't want to miss a chance at a home playoff game because Tom Brady missed 3 or 4 games due to an injury or something.
Right.
That would have been my take. But see, Brady is so sensitive. And in a way that probably drove him to be great, right? So you
Yeah.
know, like you can kind of take and leave some of it, but like I would say that his attitude kind of fueled his greatness. But there, I was like, I don't know. To me, that storyline felt like a reach when
It
they
well,
drafted.
it was similar to the Matt Castle thing in 2007,
Yeah,
where he didn't explicitly say that, but it obviously upset him
yeah,
that Matt Castle was getting all this attention while he was injured.
yeah. And them, like, I don't think they made the direct comparisons, but like you could kind of feel it in their head, like kind of see it the way they were like, and hear it in their voice. It's like they were comparing it to like the Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre like draft
Hmm.
or in 2005 or when we took Love in 2020. Not the same thing, first of all, because those two quarterbacks, Love and Rodgers, were taken in the first round. This whole Michael Penix situation with Kirk Cousins, like that was a top 10 pick. Like when you take a quarterback in the first round, you should have every intention to start him at some point.
Yeah.
Now, a late second round pick like Kyle Trask, literally Kyle Trask in the 21 draft, ironically, who played under Brady, by the way. So Kyle
Yeah,
Trask,
he
no, it
did.
was the, yeah, it was the
21.
21,
Yeah.
20, because he was on that 2020 Florida team that nearly won the SEC. But Kyle Trask was drafted the end of the second round in 2021. He hasn't played he hasn't started a game in his NFL career.
No, he might
So
even be
like,
out of the league.
so they were completely tone deaf on what a late second round quarterback really means. And like, and it was complete revisionist history. The only controversy that happened was when Brady got suspended and Garoppolo came out and balled out.
Yeah.
That was the
Yeah.
controversy because then they're like, well, they could win without Brady, which is technically true. They proved it again that they
Yeah.
won without Brady, right?
Yes.
So and will they win Super Bowls without Brady? I don't agree with that. I'm not
No.
going that far. But like to me, that was just a stretch. Like, come on. Like, and but going kind of focusing in on it, like that was kind of Belichick's like one of his top moments is I lose my Hall of Fame quarterback for the first 4 games. They didn't miss a beat.
No.
And that was an important stretch of games. Like they had some tough matchups. Like they
Yeah.
had to
They
play.
started in Arizona, who was one of the
Yeah.
best teams in football the year before.
Yeah, Arizona was coming off an NFC title game appearance, and they were riding high with all those
They
star
they,
players.
they hosted Houston on a short week,
Yep.
and they beat Houston's ass, if I remember.
Yeah, I
Um,
think was that the year Houston was 16 was when they were really bad. Like in but I think the year before they had made the playoffs.
I thought they won the division in 16.
No, because
No, that was the Brock Osweiler year. They did win
yeah,
it, but they
they were
weren't
horrible.
good. You're right.
Yeah,
Yeah, they
yeah,
weren't
they
a
were.
good team, but they
They won the. That's a disgrace. If you're that to me, if you're selling against Marcus Mariota, that's all you have to say. Is like
exactly.
it's like Brock Osweiler won a division you were in. Like we know, and like I think that was a year Andrew Luck had a lot of injuries too. I think he didn't miss the entire season, but
Yeah.
anyway, like they talk about the first 4 weeks. Jimmy Garoppolo was very good, and the other thing that like they didn't even really say is like Jacoby Brissett was pretty solid
Hmm.
in the game that he played in. They didn't talk about this, but have you ever heard the story about like I want to say it was like Edelman mentioned this story. Like Jimmy G gets hurt, I think, in the fourth game,
The third game, I think it was,
the
or no,
third game. I
Maybe you're
can't
right.
remember.
Maybe it was the fourth game. I
It was
forget now.
late. It was late in the sequence. Like Brady's almost back at that point,
Yes.
and it was against the Bills, I want to say. But like he gets hurt, but it's not like a terrible injury. But like Garoppolo stays out of the game, and there was tension because I think they wanted him to stay in the game, and he didn't. And then like it's to me, it wasn't a huge coincidence that Jimmy G was soon shipped to San Francisco like the following season.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting, and that's hearsay. I want to say that was Edelman that said that in an interview. Um, I'll have to go find it now, but yeah, again, the theme of this whole documentary is Tom Brady's mad or offended by something Bill Belichick did. So, but they go into the rest of the 2016 season.
He has a great
Well,
year.
I would argue that was the last great Patriots team.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
it
like
was.
17 and 18, and we'll talk about those in a little bit, had some disconnects, but they were still really good. They made the Super Bowl
Yeah.
in both seasons, but like this team was great.
Yeah,
Uh,
this was a really strong team.
and to give credit to Brady, he was dominant. Like when he came back from suspension, he didn't win. Did he win MVP or no?
No, he
Matt
was in the
Ryan won it. Yeah,
Matt Ryan won it, but he was in the discussion for it. He did throw 28 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, so in
yeah.
12 games, which is
The only
incredible.
other, I feel like the only guy that's done that was Nick Foles. Like Nick Foles
Yeah,
had that
he had 27
27.
and 2.
Yeah. Tom Brady losing out to Nick Foles. Well, I mean, who would have thought?
Mm,
Yeah.
preview.
But let's talk about that 16 season, or that postseason, because that was a special run. Um,
hmm
they just absolutely dominated Pittsburgh in the AFC title game. Who did they play in the? Was it
The
Houston?
Texans. Yeah.
They got. I'll say this too, by the way. Like, name a quarterback that's had easier divisional matchups. Or name a team that has had easier divisional matchups in terms of opposing starting quarterbacks than the 2010s Patriots. Because like
Yeah.
they had years of Marcus Mariota,
They had Mark Sanchez and they lost to him.
Mark Sanchez, Tim Tebow started against them one year. You
Matt
had
Schaub.
was
Mm,
Matt who was 16 Brock Osweiler,
16 was Osweiler. 2012 was Schaub. Who was
who
2013 against?
14 was Flacco.
Yeah, that was a great game, actually.
Was 13 was that the Texans too?
That might have been the Texans as
They played
well.
I feel like they played the Texans a bunch.
They played the Texans quite a few times, if I remember
Yeah. But
correctly.
they played a bunch of scrubs in the divisional round.
Maybe
Like
that was
they
like
did.
Case Keenum or something like that,
Yeah.
which is
Uh
even funnier.
they had in 15 it was Alex Smith and the Chiefs. Uh
Yeah,
was it Smith and the Chiefs?
it was Smith and the
Yeah.
Chiefs and Andy Reid
Yeah.
with awful time management.
Yeah. That was like it's kind of funny. Like we're going way off topic on a lot of this, but it's just fun to talk about. Like to me, it's so funny. Andy Reid's whole reputation prior to Mahomes was like horrible clock management.
Yeah, can't win the big one.
But now he has a great quarterback. He's winning
He's
all the
won
big
three
ones.
big ones.
Yeah. So it's like, huh, who would have thought? Like maybe if you have the great quarterback to go along with the great coach.
Yeah,
Yeah. But they dominate their way through the playoffs that season. Like, and Brady, to give him credit here, because like I don't want to come off as a Brady hater. I'm a Brady critic because I think he gets so much credit, but not a ton of criticism. And to me, he deserves a little bit of that.
yeah,
Especially the way he like, I think the way he like drives the narrative home that he's been slighted. Like, get out of here with that.
yeah.
Now, uh, dominant through the postseason. That I still remember that Pittsburgh game, like because I was on the way back from Atlanta that day,
Oh yeah,
and like we turn on the game, and like by the end of the first quarter, like on the radio, I'm just like, this game is over.
yeah, yeah.
And to
The Steelers have never been the same since then, really.
The Steelers, if you think about it, this Patriots dynasty probably made Big Ben not like a Mount Rushmore type quarterback
Yeah.
in hindsight,
Yeah.
because this is the team that was their absolute kryptonite. They lost three AFC championship games to this team.
Yeah.
Like 01, which wasn't Big Ben, that was Cordell Stewart, but like 01, 2004, where a 15-1 team got blown out
Yeah. At home.
at home, and then 2016 they just got run out.
Has
And
a
it's funny,
15-1 team ever been blown out at home in the playoffs?
stop. Why do you
Okay. That was mean. That was mean.
Oh, all
I
right.
wish my team could have made the playoffs.
Hey, when we talk about the Eagles, I'll just bring up the 2018 wild card. So I still
So
I still see y'all's mascot like when it double doinks off the crossbar or
and he just hits the
off the
ground.
upright and he just collapses. I like part of me like when I saw that I was like, is Neil in that costume right now? Because like that's how I pictured you watching that play where you just collapse and you're thinking to yourself, it's like,
I didn't know you were Staley the Bear.
yeah,
Yeah, is what I do
that
on the
that
side.
that's how I get tickets to the game.
um, but no, yeah, they were very dominant. They went to the Super Bowl, and I was not a big believer. I was actually shocked in a way that the Falcons had handled the playoffs as easily as they did that year, because the Falcons, they lost to every good team they played basically in the regular season. Um, and so
I
I was pretty sure um that the Patriots would win that game fairly fairly convincingly.
yeah.
And sure enough, they get off to that incredible start.
That I think though what the Georgia Dome was one of those places. I had the privilege of going to two different playoff games. I guess one of them was not a privilege. It was one of the worst days of my fandom. That was the 2016 NFC title game against Green Bay. And then I went to the 2012 divisional against Seattle. That building gets really loud. That is a hard play. The old Georgia Dome was a hard place to play when the fans get excited about the team. The problem with the Falcons half the time is there's nothing to be excited about.
Yeah.
Like there's such a vanilla team. Like so many times it's like this team is like when they make a hire, they're like, yeah, we're gonna get Mike Smith, Arthur Smith,
Yeah.
and like
Oh, Mike Smith. Yeah. Or
yeah,
Arthur Smith too. Yeah.
yeah, Mike Smith was like the most just like bland coach. Like when I think of like the 1 o'clock game on Fox and like
Hell, Dan
Sam Ro
Quinn is a pretty bland.
yeah, Sam Rosen's calling the game. And it's like your typical NFC South matchup, and like it's like complete afterthought. But the team is decent, but those early Falcons teams they like ran the ball. But Shanahan was the offensive coordinator of that 16 team. And they were
Yeah.
like the best offensive football outside of the Patriots. And I'm curious to see what their DVOA is because I don't have that in front of me. But like the 16 Falcons though, like to me, the main difference is when you got a team in their building, like they had such a big advantage. And I think
Yeah.
when they got Green Bay, like Green Bay was like thin at that point. Like we put Ladarius Gunner on Julio Jones. That's not gonna go
I,
well. And
I
like
mean,
it has
they really caught fire at the right time, Atlanta. Like that was like pure, like they had their best run of the season.
yeah. And
I
going
mean,
back to
not many teams get that lucky that like you're just good enough to make the playoffs, and then you just get hotter than hot.
yeah,
Like the
the
2005
Giants do that.
Steelers. The Giants have done it a couple times, but it actually happened quite often a few years there, and
I think they're
like
21 Rams. People don't want to put them in that bucket, but like to me, the 21 Rams
yeah,
regular
I'd say the
season
Rams
wasn't that good.
probably.
Like
Um,
people
hell,
don't want
even
to
the
remember.
Bengals that year.
People do not want to remember this, but the regular season, like the first year of Stafford, like I didn't think they were that great.
No,
Like
I mean,
every yeah,
I thought they'd beat Arizona, but I didn't think I thought
yeah.
for sure Tampa would beat them.
But when they traded for Von Miller, we are so off the rails already. But when they traded for Von Miller in 21, the
Oh
Rams,
yeah.
our first reaction is like, what the hell are you doing? Y'all aren't winning the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And like and I still think like that's one of the luckier teams of the last 10 years. It's like because
Hmm.
everything kind of fell in place for them. Because like I think if they had to go on the road to Green Bay, they wouldn't have won. But San Francisco took care of that for them.
Yeah.
Like they were a warm weather team that never had to leave the warm weather.
Warm weather.
Their one road game was at Tampa, so like they could do that. Um, so that like, but the Falcons were kind of like it was a perfect kind of timing. The NFC was not great that year because you had a rookie Dak Prescott, and the
Hmm.
Cowboys were the one seed, and like a beat up Green Bay team with a terrible defense went in and beat them for you. So
Yeah.
you get a home game as a two seed. And that Green Bay defense had no business being on the field with Julio Jones.
Seattle won a division. I was just thinking who won the West,
And
but they
now and
weren't
that
even
was
very good.
yeah, and that was Detroit was in the playoffs. That was the last year
Yeah.
of Jim Caldwell. They
And
fired
the
him.
Giants, that was
Yeah.
the last of Eli's teams to
You're
make the
right. Yeah.
playoffs.
Cuz we beat Eli. So at Lambeau, we finally got Eli at Lambeau. So then that was the Odell Beckham Jr. boat scandal. Like where they had the team picture on the boat, and like the Giants didn't win a playoff game for like 6 years. And
Yes.
Minnesota freaking ruined that for us, by the
Yeah,
way.
I know.
Like we could have kept making that joke
The
forever.
the worst division winner in the well, not I don't want to say the worst 13 game winner in NFL history by far.
Yeah. But going to the Super Bowl, because Super Bowl 51, I think what's kind of crazy is I actually still think Super Bowl 52 was like the wildest Super Bowl I've
Hmm.
ever watched. Uh, that game was just so many storylines, crazy, and Nick Foles, all that. Philly was crazy,
Yeah.
but like this game, obviously pretty nuts. It's always known as 28-3. So like, the way I want to talk about this game is it's the second quarter, and the Falcons, I think, go. They have the pick six. I think Robert Alford.
Towards the end of the first half there.
Yeah, I think they go 21-3. What are you thinking at the end of the second quarter?
I went to go eat dinner. That's what I did. I um I was
I thought the
pretty
game was
dumb.
over.
I was pretty dumbfounded throughout the whole game. I was trying to wrap my brain around um the whole idea that not that the Patriots could lose the Super Bowl, but that they were going to get their ass. Well,
Blown out in one.
they
They
they did
never
it
been.
twice earlier in the 20th century that it had happened. Um,
Yeah,
to our
but they.
teams,
Yeah, but they had
but
never. They had never like within the Brady Belichick era.
yeah, even in I don't think they'd ever even been embarrassed in the playoffs before. Like they usually lost by like a touchdown, maybe. Oh, maybe that 2013 AFC championship.
2009 against the
Oh
Ravens.
yeah, that's right. I forgot about that one.
No,
But
the 2013 game against the Broncos, I don't think was that bad. I think it was
no,
like
was it
maybe
not?
a touchdown to a 10-point game, something like that.
I'll tell you what. When now I'm blanking on his name. When when Matt Ryan got strip sacked in the fourth quarter, who was it by again? Number 54 on the
Dante Hightower.
Dante Hightower. When Dante Hightower came, like basically like a bat out of hell and hit Stafford just as he was throwing the ball, and the Patriots recovered, even down 28-12. That was the moment I said, "Oh, yeah, they're winning this. There's no doubt about it."
I think I got nervous for the Falcons. I didn't really have I was kind of happy the game got close in the fourth because I wanted a good game. I didn't care who won. So like when I got nervous for the Falcons is when they got it to 28-12. That's when it really hit
Yes,
me because I was like, that's a two-score game.
that's when Hightower stripped
Yeah.
him.
Yeah, so like they
It was
when
funny listening in the Dynasty when Scott Pioli, I'd forgotten he was with Atlanta at that time,
yeah,
but he had said like all the executives in the Atlanta box were they were high-fiving and hugging each other, and somebody like patted him on the back and they're like, Scott, come on, man, like enjoy the moment. And he was like, stop, like, do you realize who we're playing? And
yeah,
that must have been a terrible feeling because
yeah,
he kind of spoke it into existence then.
yeah. It's kind of like when a friend texts you like at the 4 minute mark of the fourth quarter.
I knew this is where this is
Yeah,
going.
yeah. It's kind of like that where and as much crap as I give you for that, I kind of deserve it because in this Super Bowl, I'm in a group text with a couple of friends of mine, and one of them is a diehard Falcons fan.
Oh.
And at the end of the second quarter, I think it was after the pick six, I go, "Congrats, man! This is awesome." And the other guy in the text thread like just responds, "I knew I messed up." As soon as the other guy replies, "Wow." And like I think like 4 minutes, like 3 4 minutes later, the guy, the Falcons fan, like the people that if they listen to this, they know who they are. Like he texts me and goes, "I'm speechless right now. I can't believe you would do that." And I'm like, I didn't mean it.
I didn't do nothing.
I was being I was being sincere. I
Yeah.
didn't realize I was like the jinx yet. But see, what's crazy is that was only when it was 21-3. They score again to go up 28-3, and I'm
Yeah.
thinking like, oh, he can stop being mad at me. It's 28-3. It's a
Yeah.
halfway through the third quarter.
Yeah. There's 3 minutes left in the third quarter, and they're up 4 scores on the
Yeah.
Patriots.
And what's actually crazy is to get to 28-12. I think they missed
They
a
missed an extra
2 point.
point. Yeah.
Yeah. So like it could have been even closer. It's like, it
Mm-hmm.
should have been 28-13. That whole game though, what it showed me, and I'll give everyone involved with the Patriots credit because a comeback to that, like, and Brady deserves as much credit as he got, right? But what I think misses the point in like when they did the Scott Pioli thing is that it's like they made it about Brady. And I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah. And
Brady's a
it,
big part of that.
yeah.
Obviously, he's a quarterback of a team. Like a quarterback has to move the ball and get them into scoring range. Absolutely.
But
Brady
Brady
deserves
wasn't playing defense.
when you're down that many points and you need to score that fast, you have to get stops. You have to get 3 and outs.
Yeah.
You have to get
Brady didn't catch the ball two
yeah.
centimeters from hitting the ground.
But you made a great point. The play that changed the game was the Dante Hightower. And the
Yeah.
other play that no one wants to talk about because it's like Kyle Shanahan chokes all the time, the Super Bowl. But it's like, what are you doing on third down when you're in field goal range? Like,
Yeah.
why are you passing? And like when he did that, like it's like I
Wasn't there a
get
holding call or a
yeah
sack before
the
that?
hold the holding the holding call I think knocked them out of field goal range.
And this was after
No,
Julio
you're right.
Jones.
I think there was a holding call and then a sack. It was like fourth
Yes.
and
Yes.
25. So it's like the thing is, if you
Oh.
just run Tevin Coleman or Devonta Freeman up the gut, just tell them don't fumble, get 2 or 3 yards. Matt Bryant was a super reliable kicker. If
Mm-hmm.
you kick a field goal, you go up 11 with like 3 minutes
No.
to play.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Your game's a game at that point. Scott Pioli relaxed a little bit. Like it would take an actual miracle because like Brady would have had to get his team with like no timeouts down the field, score a touchdown and a 2 point conversion, get
Get
an
the ball
onside
back.
kick, and get a field goal. Like at that point, but like the way their comeback was so masterful is like they just executed. Like they didn't like outside of the Hightower play, nothing felt that fluky about it. It just kind of like they just did everything they had to do. They pitched a perfect game.
Yeah.
Like they
And,
didn't
and
have like a create out the Edelman catch was like the only play where the ball felt like it bounced their way because the guy was it Alfred I think dropped it
yeah, right through
and
his hands.
he had the pick six which is I think crazier.
In sports, sometimes obviously those kind of comebacks are so are so rare in any, you could put it in any realm. And basketball team coming from 20 down with 5 minutes left, and baseball team coming from 6 or 7 runs down, hockey, a team coming down from 3 or 4 goals, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
But there is some truth to the idea, I think, that like when a team, like when the snowball starts going down the hill really fast, and then there's just nothing you can do to stop it. We have, like, obviously, like I said, they're rare, but you've seen those baseball games where a team is up 7 runs in the 8th inning, and then they can't stop walking guys. And then anytime they throw the ball over the middle, the team is just crossing the ball into the outfield. Like
Yeah.
sometimes there's just nothing you can do to stop that snowball from coming down the mountain. Like things just fall apart, like at ease. And I think that's kind of really that's what happened to Atlanta. And it wasn't, as we just said, it wasn't all Brady. It was the Patriots were such a well-oiled machine
Yeah.
that they took advantage at every single misstep the Falcons took.
They executed. Like that
Yep.
was it was a
Do
magic.
your job.
Yeah, they executed to the point where I mean, you have to like it was a total team victory. Like
Yeah.
and the final drive, like that was like the most I thought about like soul crushing sequences, but like if go back and watch that if you're like a Falcons fan or player or whatnot, like if you care about the Atlanta Falcons, like that is just soul crushing because you know it's that you know they're gonna score. At that point, like it's over. Like they win the toss, they're not giving you the ball back. It's you're done. And
Yeah.
that was the game to me that epitomized like Bill Belichick is a top three coach all time, if not, you could argue the greatest, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Tom Brady, the same thing, probably top three, top four all time. You could argue the greatest quarterback of all time,
Yeah.
and just a collection of these guys and what they were able to do. It's super admirable, and like that's why we love sports are these type of comebacks. Like you never give up. Like that's we teach kids that
Mm-hmm.
at really young ages. Is
Just
just
keep plugging
because
away.
you just keep playing because you don't know what could happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I, I'm not a Patriots fan. I don't hate them. I don't love them, but I'm really a critic at this point of them. But I'll say like that's one of the more fun games to go back and rewatch because it's just excellence like in all facets of the game when they came back.
That was, I remember, before we move on to episode 9. But I remember at that point, the next day or so, the next 2 days after, there was like kind of a meme, and it was about like all of the championships that had been won in that calendar year. You had
Yeah,
Leicester City win the Premier League. You had the Cavs come back from 3-1 down in that crazy game 7 to win the NBA Finals. The Cubs won the World Series after coming. I just got chills saying that. Coming from 3-1 down. Clemson won the national championship on that was a wild game too. Against Alabama. In the last seconds of that game. And then of course the Patriots. Oh, and wasn't that the North Carolina winning the national championship on a buzzer beater year too?
or Villanova.
Villanova, sorry, they beat.
Yeah, they beat North Carolina.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, because I still remember the like Jim Nance calling that. Like it's
for
just
the championship.
and then you have what's his name?
Bill
Who's the
Rafferty.
Bill Rafford. Ah! Yeah. But see, like that, I love reactions like that because that's just pure, right?
Yes.
That's like we all do that. We're all like, ah. But
Yeah. No matter how many times you see something crazy, you still can have a raw emotion to something like that.
I was thinking about like the announcers of this game because like I think Joe Buck was just really good.
Yeah.
Joe
Buck
Buck is
was
one of
in
those
like a great run at this point.
Joe Buck is one of those people you go back and watch like a lot of his early stuff in like the early 2000s. I thought he sucked. Like
It was
to put it,
terrible.
he was terrible. He brought no excitement. And like Al Michaels to me was one of the best in the 2000s. Like his
Yeah.
like the 2008 Super Bowl with the Steelers and the Cardinals, just an amazing job calling those games. Like he was just terrific. And then like late in the 2010s, like I was just so glad Al Michaels didn't call this game because like it was because
Yeah.
Al Michaels would have been like, and wow, the Patriots, they won the Super Bowl. And he'd be like, and you could tell in his voice, he's like, all right, time to go home. Like it's kind of funny. Like, but I think Joe Buck was just absolutely on fire. Like I'm glad he was able to call that game uh for Fox. But going into 2017, this is kind of where like the tension they start saying between
This is a
Bill and
really tough episode to get through.
yeah, it pissed me off.
It
Like,
was, yeah, it was not a fun episode by any stretch.
so let's go through a couple of things that happened in the season. Okay, we'll say this. Despite all of the drama, the Patriots are still arguably the best team in the AFC that year.
Yep.
Were they the 1 seed or the 2? Did
They
Pittsburgh
were
get
the
them up?
one.
Pittsburgh was the 2, but Pittsburgh lost to Jacksonville in the division. That's right.
Hmm.
And Pittsburgh, let's face it, I just said it earlier. They were never a challenger to New England. They never like Pittsburgh could never figure out how to defend the passing game. Brady always picked apart those zone defenses. Like it was so that's to me, they didn't have any competitors and they ran through the AFC. It almost showed you how spoiled the Boston sports media and their fans were. As they're like, it was dysfunctional. It's just hard to get through. And I'm like, y'all won like 13 games. What are we
Yeah,
doing here?
you went to the goddamn Super Bowl.
Yeah. And this was the most Patriot season of all of them. Like nobody feels happy. And I still this was my main takeaway from the season. They should have won the Super Bowl. And I agree with the criticism Belichick gets for this, the Malcolm Butler thing. Malcolm Butler probably should have been played in the Super Bowl. Matt Patricia began his reputation of being terrible in that game and hasn't changed that since. Ever since that game, he's been awful. Like he went to Detroit, awful. He was, I guess, back in New England
He
was
was the
awful,
offensive coordinator for the Patriots,
which was wild because
which
he's a
is
defensive
weird.
coach. And then he was in Philly last year, and Philly like completely fell apart in the second half of the season.
Yeah.
So, like, it's
And the fact that he
especially the
was with
defense.
Philly just made them that much more unlikable last year.
Yeah. So you have like so Matt Patricia, like that storyline. But to me, the biggest takeaway of the 17 season is I forgot how much the stars aligned for this team, and they didn't win it. That's to me the takeaway. This team
Yeah.
should have won in 17. This was the year outside of '07. The 17 Patriots. It's like you had the Super Bowl handed to you on a platter, and then you
Yeah.
didn't win it because these are the 4 starting quarterbacks of the conference championship weekend. Are you ready for this? Tom Brady, obviously, Hall of Fame quarterback, no doubt. But we already knew that because this is a Patriots show. Their opponent in the AFC title game was Jacksonville,
Yep.
Blake Bortles.
They should have
And
won.
yeah, Miles Jack wasn't down.
Yep.
And Nathaniel Hackett and I guess who was the coach? Who was the head coach?
Oh,
Hackett was the OC. It was the guy on Pardon My Take, the offensive line guy. Ugh,
bit heavier guy.
yeah. Doug Marrone. So Doug Marrone was the head coach, and like this was like Tom Coughlin's like blueprints of a team. Their whole philosophy is we're gonna give Leonard Fournette the ball the entire game. Like, and it worked up until the fourth quarter of the AFC title game. Eventually,
Yeah.
they needed Blake Bortles to convert a third down, and he couldn't do it.
He
And
couldn't do it.
Miles Jack wasn't called down. Like their defense, that Jacksonville defense, all time, I would put that defensive unit almost up with anybody. Like that team nearly won. Like, and if Jacksonville makes the Super Bowl, they win. By the way, that's my take. Blake
Yeah.
Bortles was so close to being a Super Bowl champion quarterback. Like, which is wild to think, because this is the guy that said he would rather like smoke cigarettes and work construction than play in the NFL. So, like, he said that, not me. That was on part of my take. I'm sure he was joking,
Yeah.
but he like you could tell he was not like he didn't have the Brady mentality of like, oh, I gotta prove everybody wrong. Blake Bortles was just a bro, and that Jags defense was so special. But the point, and this is a quarterback league. We talked about it with Aaron Schatz like it's the most influential position in the entire sport, probably in sports. Blake Bortles, not good. We'll say that. On the NFC side, Carson Wentz gets hurt in Philadelphia, he was arguably having an MVP season, and when he tore his ACL, they handed Tom Brady the MVP. So Nick Foles, a guy that was a complete bust in where was he before Philly? Like, because he left.
The Rams.
Yeah, he went to St. Louis, was terrible.
He
Was
took
Nick
like a year
Foles?
out of football too, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. So Nick Foles was crazy about his career. He's like gets drafted by Philly. He was a big time recruit too. Before he went to Arizona. So like Nick Foles gets drafted, like has huge numbers with Philly, gets hurt in 2014, goes to the Rams, and it's just a disaster in 2015. Goes back to Philly, and then we know what happens. Eventually wins a Super Bowl. We're about to talk about that, and then goes to Jacksonville is a total disaster. And then I think he played in a playoff game for Philly again, didn't he?
No, he
No,
didn't. You're thinking
he
Josh
played the
McCown.
no, but yeah, Josh McCown. But no, he started the following
Oh,
season in 2018. He played a number of games, and then I think he
yeah,
played
the
in the
playoff game
playoffs.
you're thinking of is the double doink.
Yeah, no, but he played, and he nearly got them. He nearly let him pass New Orleans. Like he could have gotten
Yeah.
him to back-to-back Super Bowls, but then he signs with Jacksonville in the offseason and goes back to being terrible. Like if he's not in Philly, he's bad. If he's
Yeah.
or like it's crazy. But the point, Nick Foles, not great. And then Case Keenum. So those are your competitors. Like you know the meme of like the four dragons, where like
Yeah.
instead of like three of them being mean faces and then like one doing the derp face, there's
Yeah.
three derp faces in Tom Brady. And the Patriots didn't win the Super Bowl that year.
Yeah.
Like I in the history of this sport, I've never seen an easier path to winning a title. And that's the most disappointing thing about the Patriots with Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. It's like what's crazy is they're the greatest pair to ever play the sport. And they've left so much on the table. They should have
Yeah.
won more than they did.
Yeah.
Like
Really should
like
have.
they probably should have together won 7 or 8 Super Bowls, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
They probably should have
It
won in 07, and then they probably should have won in 17. So we should
17.
say 8. And then you would argue and we'll
Maybe
get to
11. They could have won that one.
yeah, and what we could also argue it's like they shouldn't have broken up, and they probably would
Yeah.
have won in 2020, and then
Yeah.
they would each have the same number. But
They'd have 9.
so Super Bowl 52, like, would you put that game over the 28-3 game, or like in terms of like enjoyment of watching?
Well, I would say it was my favorite.
It was a great game.
It was probably the last 2 enjoyable Super Bowls.
It was
when I
so
think
awesome. It had so much going on.
There was
Like
so much the last couple years with the Chiefs, I haven't found enjoy that. Like the Chiefs keep winning these like slog. Well, not the game 2 years ago was pretty damn good with the Eagles.
the Eagles, yeah.
Last year was so long, so tiring.
2019 was pretty good against the 49ers in Miami.
Oh yeah, that's right.
That was Mahomes' first Super Bowl. Yeah.
But that for back-to-back years, this was like, like where you're going into the next year, like, oh man, I can't wait for Super Bowl Sunday because these last 2 were so fun. 17 was definitely compared to, I was just watching
the average Super Bowl, yeah.
Compared to the average Super Bowl, but even compared to 16, where all of the action happened in the last 17 minutes plus however much overtime was played. All the crazy action, you might say.
Yeah.
Whereas Super Bowl, I mean, like the Philly special happened before halftime.
Yeah.
That crazy catch that who was the running back for the Eagles? Number 30, where he toe dragged in the back of the end zone.
Clement, I think.
Yeah, I think that was in the second quarter.
Yeah. So you had
You had some memorable plays long before the game was even in like the
yeah.
decisive mode. And then
I
as a
still and
Bears
I'll
fan,
yeah.
I remember being excited because we knew that Doug Peterson was from the Andy Reid tree, and we knew Matt Nagy was from the Andy Reid tree, and it was kind of understood like, wait, maybe this is the offense the Bears are going to be running next year or something similar. And or hey, look at these guys. They took a
Uh,
they took a
hey,
young quarterback.
Matt Nagy's got plays.
Matt
Like we
Nagy,
know that.
he knows his why. Matt Nagy
Be,
does.
BU, man, BU.
BU.
Look, great Super Bowl though. And
Yes, fantastic.
but I think from the Patriots fan perspective, everybody remembers it. And I think fairly. I think this is a fair criticism. I've been a defender of Belichick through pretty much this entire series so far, but I'll give him some really big criticism, like benching your best corner in this big of a game. I didn't understand it at all. And
Just
he
in general, Belichick, and I know why he was disappointing in the documentary because the documentary focused on so many things that just weren't things he cared about.
I
He
also
wants to
think
talk X's and O's. He wants to talk history. He
well,
doesn't want to talk about what were your
and
feelings about that?
well, and I also think that something personal between him and Malcolm Butler took place. Uh,
Yes.
or he could, and I'm just speculating here, or he could have, you know, it could have been something more personal between like Patricia and Belichick, and Patricia said we need to bench him, and Belichick stuck up for his coach. Like that could have been
Could have
the other
been.
case. I don't know. Like I don't know, and like they're not going to explain that. Malcolm Butler didn't get into it, so it is what it is. But I thought what was so interesting, and I'm is Kraft. What I thought was crazy, and I don't even know if I disagree with him. Is like he blames Belichick for the loss, like straight up said it,
Yeah.
and I thought that was surprising because even though I may agree with him on that, like I don't think I would have said that,
Yeah.
even because I. That's just like saying you could blame, you know, Brady for the '09 playoff loss, or like another playoff loss where he threw interceptions or
It
something.
would be
Like,
like it would be like a parent having two kids and they all the time say, I have two great kids, I love them, but you keep focusing on the younger kid more often than not.
yeah, yeah,
That's what it kind of feels like. Oh, I love them both. They're both great. But if one's at fault, it's definitely the older one, and the younger one is my pride and joy.
yeah. So I thought that was an interesting take from Kraft to kind of give that, but Patriots do not win that Super Bowl. The Eagles win. And this quote wasn't even mentioned in the documentary because it didn't come from a Patriot player. It came from an Eagles player. But do you remember after they won? Remember Jason Kelsey came out and said like, I think it was Jason Kelsey said like, we like to have fun in Philly, like, and you can tell those guys in New England they don't have any fun. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of people took that as like, yeah, Belichick has this like terrible culture of like no
Yeah.
nonsense and like dictatorship. But like to me, I think now in hindsight, and I think that was Kelsey that said that. I just vaguely remember it being a talking point of the 2018 offseason. Um, but like the way I took it, the way I take it now, I guess, is there was so much tension between Brady and Belichick, the most powerful factions on this team. And Brady had his own faction, right? We haven't even gotten into the Alex Guerrero stuff yet. But
Oh,
you have like Gronkowski was a Brady guy,
yeah.
obviously. Like Amendola, like the Brady guy. Like,
Poor Bill didn't seem like by this like this is kind of the thing like the Teddy Bruschi days where you had Rodney Harrison and Vince Wilfork and
yeah, because
Matt
Will Fork
Light,
had
all those
gone to
guys.
Texans, yeah.
Well, they were all those guys were Belichick guys.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
2010s Patriots.
These were Brady guys.
Those were Brady guys.
And I think the way I'm going to remember this dynasty, I guess you just kind of put the words in my mouth a little bit. I think the 2000s Patriots, like if you want to, if we're going to play the game of assigning credit, well, they won 6 together. The 2000s Patriots are Belichick's, and the
Yeah,
2010s are Brady's.
think we did it.
I think that's a
That's it,
stupid way.
everybody. It's
I think
all
that's a
over.
stupid way. Like that's the Colin Cowherd method of deciding. It's such a simpleton way of doing it, but like I
It
think
makes, yeah.
it makes sense because like the way the cultures were built. And I'll say this, and like the 2018 Patriots, not really super interesting. The only really interesting thing that came out of that season is they beat a new starter in Mahomes in the AFC title game.
Yeah, and they didn't even talk about Mahomes. They didn't even bring him up.
Yeah. So they win that game. They win the Super Bowl. Oh, and by the way, didn't talk about this, is like Brady didn't play well in the Super Bowl.
No, he didn't. And the other thing I was kind of a little bit salty about as a Bears fan, the they showed the Rams like looking at film from the Alliance game that year, but the Rams, you can hear Sean McVay during like when he was mic'd up that night say like, wait, is that the Bears defense? It's the Bears. Like the Patriots literally looked at because nobody figured out the Rams
Except the
offense
Bears, yeah.
except the Bears. And the
Was that
Patriots literally looked at because that was Vic Fangio. They ran a cover 8, which is like a hybrid 6 and a 2.
yeah.
And that's what Belichick ran. And the Rams were like, damn it. This is the defense we can't stop.
Vic Fangio is like the great quarterback, like destroyer.
Yeah.
Because I remember like when he was with the 49ers, like he gave Rodgers and McCarthy a ton of problems in the playoffs, and they beat us in back-to-back seasons. And like I think Fangio showed a lot of ability. It's to me, and we'll go, and this is kind of a little nugget for next week when we talk about the Dolphins, how stupid it was to move on from him. I think that was really dumb. But that 18 Patriots team, they win the Super Bowl against the Rams in a defensive slugfest. That's number 6. That's their last one. 19, they really just glossed over. Like that never happened. The 2019 Patriots.
Yeah, 19. I don't even think they mentioned it.
Yeah, and I thought it was really the book. So there's a book called The Dynasty by Jeff Benedict. That's what this is all based off of.
Yeah.
They cover the entire Antonio Brown story. So for those that don't know, Antonio Brown played for the Patriots for like 2 games. And so Brown gets traded in the 2019 offseason from the Steelers to the Raiders. And then gets himself cut by the Raiders because he's a crazy person. And like it was the helmet thing. Like he didn't want to adjust his helmet. And then he like tried to fight Mike Mayock. It was like the craziest storyline. So he like gets himself cut by the Raiders and does that video where he's like, I'm free. He's like running around his house. Like when he should be at training camp. Oh, and he burned his foot in a cryotherapy chamber. So this all happened in like a month.
This was all the Raiders had Hard Knocks.
Yeah. That's where all the clips were of him like, I'm free. It was like NFL Films is just going like, oh my God, I can't believe we got all this. This is great. And it just shows you like that's the Raiders, everybody. So if you're like a functional organization that like somebody like Bill Belichick, you're like, I am not touching that with a 10-foot pole. I don't care how talented the dude is. And this was like Brady's influence though. And I think this was like an example of how disconnected they were because, and I have to like pull the story up, but I'm pretty sure Brady went to Kraft and it's like, we got to get this guy.
Yeah.
That didn't last very long. He was a complete knucklehead and I think said some disparaging things about everybody on the team except Brady.
in 2 weeks.
Yeah, and like after 2 weeks, and like they cut him,
It's like
and then
SpongeBob's cousin
yeah,
Stanley.
and it's just like, and because Brady, and obviously Brady was probably the one that pushed for him because Antonio Brown played for the Bucks the following year. Like Brady wanted Antonio Brown on the team,
Yeah.
and like Brady was like, I think so fixated on like I gotta have the players that fit what I do. And Belichick wanted to build like a culture of Matthew Slaters, like those kind of guys. That's
Mhm.
where like I'm just giving my take. I don't have like inside information. There is information about that. I haven't read the book in a couple years, but the Dynasty by Jeff Benedict. It's what this is all based off of. Highly suggest any Patriots fans that are listening to this to go read it. It's really really good one. But at the end of the 19 season, uh, they lose to the Titans, I believe, in the wild card.
Yeah.
Uh, Brady's last pass as a Patriot was a pick six. I always love telling people that.
Yeah. They don't
Uh,
bring that up.
yeah, that was the most forgettable playoff game in Patriots history.
Oh yeah. It
Yeah,
it just there was kind of like a sense of like ominous, like, yeah, this
yeah,
isn't
yeah. And for the Bill Belichick haters out there, I'll give you a nugget here. The Titans, one of the main things they did in that wild card game that was so awesome is early in the season, like the Patriots are up like 34 to nothing on the Jets. That was the Sam Darnold seeing ghost game.
oh yeah.
So it's like, I want to say it's like 4th and 5, and the clock is running, and the Patriots are like at the Jets 35-yard line. It's like maybe early in the fourth quarter, late in the third. And uh they take a delay of game penalty. And I think the Jets end up declining it because they don't want to give the Patriots room. So the Patriots take another delay of game penalty. They ended up running like 3 minutes off the clock. And it was like Belichick just smirking over there, just like I haven't had to run a play, and I just ran 3 minutes off.
Yeah.
Like it was like he found a hack in the rule, and I think they've outlawed that since.
Yeah.
And but Vrabel did that to Bill in a close playoff game in the wild card. So there's like 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter of this game, and I
Oh,
think
I actually I remember the
yeah,
rule because the Bears, if so, a delay game will stop the clock, but if you false start, the clock will
after
continue to run. And that the
yeah,
Bears did that to the Rams in 2018. And then that's what the Patriots, so the Titans tried doing the same thing, like, and like a purposeful, an intentional, I should say, that's the word I'm looking for, an intentional false start. And yeah, Bill lost his mind.
yeah, because I mean, a pro like I would too if I'm the coach of the team. He's like, you need the ball back, and the team that's punting with instead of 6 minutes to go, there's now 3 minutes to go.
Yeah.
Like that's a lot of time. Like that's
Right.
and like Rabel's over here laughing his ass off. And what was so funny about that is like Belichick literally did that to somebody else like 5 weeks before that. So and the thing I'll say about Bill is like, Bill, why did you do it against freaking Adam Gase of all people? Like
Yeah.
you didn't
Should have
need to
saved that.
save it for an important game because like Rabel saw that and he's like, oh, that's a great idea. Like, especially the way the Titans played, because they were like, we're gonna run the ball 50 times with Derrick
Yeah.
Henry, and like we're gonna play ball control.
Thanks for showing us this one.
Yeah, because teams like and the Bears for the same thing. It's like you like to limit the amount of times Mr. Trubisky has to play football. So like,
Yeah.
yeah. So but after 2019, uh, they break up.
Do you know what the first thing that I noticed when Robert was like, Tom came to my house, and it was March 16th. We were in lockdown. Was Tom disobeying lockdown protocols?
I think the Patriots and the Bucks should both be stripped of first round picks
Yeah,
because of this, because they weren't following
they weren't following
protocol. I don't know the
protocols.
timeline. I don't know though, because I'm joking, of course. But like, I think because I went out that St. Patrick's Day.
Did you?
Yeah, I went to Delaney's. which is a bar here in
On
Spartanburg.
March 17th, you went out?
I think March 17th, 2020 was a Saturday.
No, because March 13th was the Friday, because it was Friday the 13th that everything, and then 14th Saturday, 15th Sunday. So the 16th was a Monday
Okay, well, I went out for like beers and stuff that
on the
Saturday.
Saturday. Okay. I
Yeah,
was
and
at,
like, yeah, and we were even kind of joking at the bar, like, huh, everybody seems to be acting normal. Like, no,
yeah,
no big deal. So, I
this
mean,
is,
yeah, I mean, it was right at that point. Like, and I think they started the the day everything really changed. We're way off the rails now, but like, it doesn't matter.
well, it's part of the story.
Yeah, but like, the day everything really changed, and Rudy freaking Gobert's who ruined everything. Because like, once this idiot tested positive for COVID,
Yeah.
like the whole world. Adam Silver is the one that like brought down the entire world economy.
I
I'm just kidding,
remember
of
that
course.
Wednesday.
Yeah,
Um, I think the Rudy Gobert thing was on a Tuesday night. The
yeah,
Wednesday, I remember coming home from work
yeah.
and I got a text message. Could have been from you or my brother, or and it said March Madness is canceled.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, what? And
See,
then like they were still gonna play the conference tournaments, and Nebraska had a game that night, and I was only watching it because everybody on Twitter was like, look at Fred Hoiberg. Fred Hoiberg used to be a coach of the Bulls. He was coaching at Nebraska, and he was like, he was so sick he couldn't even stand up for the game. He just had his head in his hands, and I remember thinking, oh my God, what is going on? Like that was all I could. I
yeah.
was like, where are we going?
You did get the timeline mixed up a little bit though. So they canceled the conference tournaments like
Oh,
the morning after. So like that night they're playing NBA games. Rudy Gobert tests positive, so like they cancel NBA games that evening, right?
yes.
So
Immediate.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, they're like some teams were about to tip off, and the games that were like, Vince Carter's last game was actually like that night.
That's
So
right.
yeah, so like Vince Carter does like a crowd salute, like yeah, like y'all probably never see me again, so see ya, and and then they announced like cancellations of those night like the West Coast games that night, and it was all because of Rudy Gobert. And Rudy Gobert was the one like coughing into a microphone like the day before,
And
and
then touching all the.
that's why I called him an idiot because it's like the PR disaster that happened with that was
Do you
amazing at the
remember
time.
when either, I don't remember when, I'm sure it was for both, but when Brady announced that he was leaving or announced that he was um going to the Bucks or that he was signing with the, because it was pretty quickly thereafter. But you
Yeah,
remember, like, I remember watching the world news today, the world news tonight. There have been a 200% surge in COVID cases here in the United States. Our second lead story: Tom Brady is leaving the New England.
yeah, and that like normally that would have been the biggest news of the day, and I really don't care.
Right.
What was awesome about like going back to football? So, and I of course I'm kidding. Adam Silver didn't tank the world economy. He just tanked the NBA. So, but the the funny thing about like my favorite part about the COVID spring, not I shouldn't say favor. That all sucked. Um, like COVID was horrible to a lot of people in many different ways, health wise, economic wise, things like that. But the biggest overreaction, which there were a lot of, is Mike Florio saying they should cancel free agency.
They need to cancel the season.
No, 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 it wasn't canceling the season, which
Oh,
was
cancel free
six.
agency, right?
And I remember when he tweeted that, like, are they seriously going to have free agency during this? And I'm like, you, all you have to do is send a fax. Like, you don't have like, or send a PDF of a
Yeah,
contract. Like
like an e-sign on your
you,
computer.
it's like you don't risk anything. And if anything, like you're going to tell the players, like, hey, you have to wait before signing this guaranteed money. Are you
All
kidding?
right, you
Like,
can't get that check yet. Sorry.
no, yeah, And then he's like, I can't believe they're gonna host the draft. I'm like, They don't play any football at the draft. They talk about the draft every year. And I'm like, you could just do it like they did in 2020. It's just a conference call. That's all it is.
Yeah, that's
Like,
all.
and it's amazing. Somebody who's like, we can't have the NFL draft with COVID. It's like, we literally do fantasy football drafts on our phone
Yeah.
every August.
Yeah. If I could do it, so could the Bears.
It's like, how are they gonna how are they gonna be able to communicate with each other to talk about their? I'm like, we have
I
Zoom.
I
Like,
remember retweeting that Florio tweet the day of the Super Bowl, like just
yeah,
before the Super Bowl kicked off. I just retweet.
Florio has a great website. Like,
uh,
it's like the original NFL news aggregator. Like,
mhm.
it's like the good version of Dov Kleiman,
Yeah.
or Dov Kleiman. Like, Florio actually has some real sources and stuff like that. But
Doesn't
what's
change
so
that he's a big old putz.
But what's so funny about Florio is like he gets fixated on like certain things. Like about like so he'll like find a storyline and he'll be like pushing that storyline for like a year. So
Yeah.
like and it might not even come true, but it's and or like he's almost it's like he's pushing it. Like he's gonna keep throwing it out there to try and make it true. And that was one of them. It's like, how is the NFL going to hold the draft? I'm like, well, they're not going to hold it in person. Like,
Yeah.
like they won't have
They're
people
just not going
out.
to be able to kiss each other, Mike.
Yeah, yeah. It's like they can still do it over Zoom, and you can even ship cameras to the players. Like Trevor Lawrence can be in his living room with his mom and dad.
Right.
Whoa, like the oh I what was I have to go back and rewatch the 2020 draft like broadcast, but I swear I did see a few like shots where it's like, and we're at home with X and X, so and so player, and it's like 20 people at their house.
Or
Yeah,
like it would be like their like the living room windows, and in the reflection of the windows you would see like
there's like a
30
bunch of people.
people.
Yeah, there's like
behind the
30
camera.
people. There's like 30 people outside of the pool deck. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, like,
right.
we're social distancing at home. It's like,
Yeah.
no, they're not. But like, yeah, but I not to make light of COVID, but like there were, and we were really off the rails now. Wow. But like the best thing that happened during the summer of COVID, and I actually rewatched some of it today, was Gus Duggerton. Like,
Oh yeah,
I
that
miss those. I hope Big Cat brings back Gus Duggerton for the
for
new game.
NCAA 25, yeah,
Yeah.
or college football 25.
Yeah, he's been retired for 4 years now, so it's
Yeah,
time to bring.
he's gotta come back now.
Yeah, so he's but like that was, and I remember being so sports deprived that spring where I was like watching Gus Duggerton live streams, and I'm like, I am watching a grown man play NCAA 14 right now. Like,
Those were some dark times.
yeah, it was bad, and then yeah, it was so bad I went back and started watching NASCAR for like a couple of weeks because they were like the first sport to come back.
Yeah.
Um, they started they did the Coke 600 on Memorial Day weekend, and I'm like, this is all we have. Like, this is the only sport
I remember like Tom Fernelli found like a soccer league like in
in
like
Australia or
Belgium
something.
or like Eastern Europe or like somewhere like some obscure country, and he was like, "Can we bet on this?"
Yeah, yeah, you did see a lot of like sickos like for gambling. It's like
Watching
you
Korean baseball.
you had a shot to just get clean.
Right.
Like you had 2.5 months to just like it was probably like a message from the gods or
Yeah.
from God or whoever you believe in, right? But it's like it's a message from God telling you maybe, just maybe you shouldn't bet every single day.
Quit any of your addictions, and some people got worse.
Yeah, I had a friend from college, he told me about his women's tennis. And I'm thinking like, dude, you're betting and he's like, are you and I'm like, are you betting like on the French Open or the Wimbledon? He's like, no, like the WTA. And I'm like, they're playing in like Doha. Like, do you stay up and watch this? And he's like, you get such an advantage. And I'm just like, and like I just slapped my head. It's like one of the funniest, like
Oh, geez.
that was a summer that you could have had a lot of people like clean, like get rid of an addiction. And it to me now,
Yeah.
going to the NFL, like gambling is worse than ever. Like people are, that's all they talk about now
Right.
is
Yeah,
like
it actually only got worse after that.
oh, yeah, the NFL saw the money. They're like, they probably looked on Twitter and saw how many sickos, degenerate people were out there, and they're like, "Whoa, we could make a ton of money from this." Like, wow. And then
We
like
should start pumping all of our ads about this.
the lawmakers are like, "We should legalize this
Yeah.
because this is
This
like
will
an
bring back
addictive.
the economy.
This is like an addictive drug that we could make a
And we
ton
could
of
tax
money.
it.
Yeah, we could generate new revenue." So it's like, but yeah. So Brady goes to the Bucks. He wins a Super Bowl with them. Don't want to talk about how he did it.
Yeah.
Um, that was another dark day.
I was hoping the last like kind of clips of the show where Brady went back to the Patriots this year, for like a I don't know,
Yeah,
like a jersey retiring or something like that. There was a part of me that like in a rom-com, like where the couple like they get back together after I was hoping for like a hug between Brady and
which
Belichick.
I don't think I'm still like of the belief, and this is my belief. I still don't think they like each other very much,
I
and
don't think so.
I don't think that'll ever change. Um, but you see that a lot of the times. Like I don't think like. Do you think Michael Jordan and
Jerry Reinsdorf.
do
Michael
you think
Jordan
they're
hasn't been back at a Bulls game in like 10 years. So probably not.
yeah, he probably won't go back until Reinsdorf sells the team. So
And that'll never happen.
yeah, so that it's not unusual.
It's funny. Like I was like honestly, when I was watching that, besides the Bulls, I was thinking about the Beatles.
Yeah,
A group or whoever that like changes
they're so great.
pop
Like
culture or changes their industry
yeah,
forever. But like the fame and the money that gets involved
build your
and the
ego.
egos, it it
Yeah,
it destroys anything that was there.
yeah, because you and me are big Bill defenders, but
Yeah.
Bill has an ego,
Yes.
obviously.
This was a
Because
hard watch as a build defender. I
yeah,
will have to admit.
and where I'll criticize Bill is like if you're like Bill is one of those people where I think like winning is always his number one priority. It's like, well, if winning really were your number one priority, keep Tom Brady. Like it's, but at the same time, Tom Brady, if winning is your biggest priority,
You got to go
maybe
elsewhere.
no, make amends with Belichick.
Or yes, or that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like because a part of me thinks Brady's the one that I think had Kraft could have gotten Brady to sit down with because I think both of them if Kraft and I'll say Kraft could have done a better job, but I think eventually Kraft was just like trying to appease their egos to the point where
Yes.
he couldn't do it anymore because
And
I
he
think he
wanted
let
he wanted Brady to be his friend longer than he wanted
yeah
Bill.
yeah and like at the end of the day like and somebody is like prolific and like successful in business as Bob Kraft is. It surprised me how naive he was when it came to type A personalities, like in
Yeah.
managing that. Like when you're running a business like his, where you're running a professional sports franchise and you're literally the most successful at it of anyone in the industry, like at any sport. Like maybe Jerry Buss is probably the only person I could think of that
Yeah.
handled more
George
egos because
Steinbrenner.
yeah, Steinbrenner or Jerry Buss because like on the Lakers side you had like Shaq, Kobe, and then before that Magic,
Magic.
Pat
Brady.
Riley, like Phil Jackson, like all these Steinbrenner with the Yankees and Jeter and A-Rod and going all the way back to like Reggie Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
And but Kraft won so many Super Bowls and we both agree that Super Bowls are the hardest pro sports championship to win
Yes.
and win consistently. So I think that's what kind of surprised me about Bob Kraft is as somebody as successful as he was and as smart as he is was so naive when it came to these two guys. And I think he genuinely loves both of them. And
Yeah.
and that's admirable. But at the same time, it's like this is $1 billion enterprise, dude. You gotta like you got to lay the hammer sometimes. You got to
Yeah.
say like, no, y'all have to freaking figure this out, because if you don't, my team's not going to be worth crap.
Yes.
Like,
This is what I care about. I don't
yeah,
give a crap what you guys are
I
feuding about.
I want the Patriots to keep winning Super Bowls,
And so should you.
and so should you. Figure it out. Like, and that's a little frustrating. And I'll give criticism to all three of those
Yeah.
people. But it's a complex story, and we'll finish up here, and I'll let you finish up with any of your thoughts. Well, to me, the theme of this is you have three people that were like the best at what they did. I just talked about Kraft as an
Yep.
owner, Belichick as a coach, Brady as a quarterback. You could argue all three of them are the greatest at what they did, and they all were together at the same time, and they all deserve, for as much credit as they get, they deserve an equal amount of criticism for how it ended. But to me, the documentary didn't do that. I think the documentary was like Belichick bad, and then it kind of went away.
Yeah, that was and as you said, like they didn't bring up the Antonio Brown thing. I know it's kind of funny, and obviously they would never do it with Kraft there, but Kraft had quite a very known scandal himself when he was getting a tug.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they were never going to bring that up.
But like, little things that didn't bring up chronological issues with it. I thought the cinematography was fantastic.
Yeah. It was a well-produced show.
Well produced. I didn't like all of the content, we might say.
Yeah, I think it missed a lot of storylines that were important. Like in the last episode, we talked about Randy Moss in the 2010 season. Like that completely got
Yes.
glossed over. Like, and that's a team. If I think Randy Moss stays on the 2010 Patriots, I think they probably win the Super Bowl.
Yep.
So that gets glossed over. Like, and I'll finish up here and do you have any more thoughts before?
No.
So I'll finish up with my last thought and then cut it out. To me, what's so amazing about the Patriots is, for as successful as they were, my biggest takeaway is they left a lot of meat on the table. They should have won more Super Bowls, and they're an abject failure at the end.
Absolutely.
I'm just kidding. They won a lot of Super Bowls, but they left a ton. They did leave a ton of meat on the bone, and they are not failures, but they literally could have won more Super Bowls, and that's kind of crazy to think about. Thank you again for listening to the Old Souls Football Podcast. On next week's episode, Neil and I dive into the AFC East for the 2024 season.